when he came to speak in Hickory several years ago, I heard Tony Campella talk about a teacher whom he had known. I'll just call her Mrs. Watson. I can't remember her last name, but I'll never forget the story of this incredible teacher and a young boy by the name of Tommy, who the other teachers had said had been a very problematic student. Heck, he was only getting ready to go into the 3rd grade. And so, but the 1st and 2nd grade, he had not learned to read or write. He was literally left behind in many ways. And Miss Watson couldn't figure out why it was that he was just getting passed up from grade to grade. And anyway, she heard all the stories. She heard that he was a problematic child. And some of the things that she heard was this. First of all, the father would hardly never come to any parent-teacher conferences. Secondly, nobody knew what was going on with the mother. The father would never talk about the mother. So they didn't know if the mother was a part of the boy's life or not. So Miss Watson decided that when the first day of class started, that she would treat Tommy like any other child. She'd try to help him out as best she could, and she did. And sometimes she really did have to come along beside of him and really give him extra instruction because he was just a slow learner. And again, he hadn't learned to read or to write. Well, it came Christmas time. And you know, Christmas time is a perfect time for parents to have permission to bribe the teacher. You know that? Got to give a teacher a real nice gift. And so a lot of these gifts were coming in, some beautiful gifts. And of course, a lot of sweet smelling candles and other things were coming in. Well, it really became almost a competition. And then she opened up Tommy's gift. He'd wrapped it himself with a paper bag. And the bow was sideways on it. But when she opened it and pulled out its contents, it was a flask of perfume that was 3/4 empty. Every child in that class lost it and started laughing. To her credit, she didn't laugh at Tommy. She held the bottle up in the air and she said, "That is the most unique and special gift I think I've ever received. Thank you, Tommy." And that instantly shut down the kids making fun of him. And she put it back in the box and set it aside. Well, it was time to dismiss the kids and for them to go to the bus. And he came up privately and he said to Miss Watson, "Would you mind spraying a little bit of that on your neck?" And she thought, it's the end of the day. If it smells bad, I can just go home and wash it off. What have I got to lose? And so she just sprayed a little bit on her neck. And he leaned up and smelled and he said, "You smell just like my mother." You see, Miss Watson, she died 4 years ago. And I was looking forward to giving it to somebody who reminded me of my mother. Well, you know what she thought about during Christmas break, don't you? During those 2 weeks, there wasn't a day that went by that she didn't think about and pray for Tommy. So when she came back in January, she came back a different teacher. She decided to pull him aside and invest in him 3 days a week and give him tutoring after school with the father's permission. And she invested in that young man's life. Fast forward several years, it's 2 months before the high school graduation. He comes by and gives her a personal invitation. And he says, "Miss Watson, I'm going to graduate in 2 months. Would you please come and sit where my mother would have sat?" And she said, "I'd be glad to, Tommy." And so she did that very thing. Fast forward 4 more years, and Tommy's a month away from graduating from college, summa cum laude. Now, I don't know about you if you know much about that Laude family, but I even took Latin in high school and didn't know much about the Laude family except this, that cum laude means with praise. Magna cum laude means with great praise. Summa cum laude means with greatest praise. I graduated glad cum laude. I was glad I came and glad I got out of college by the skin of my teeth. But Tommy graduated summa cum laude, pre-med, and had already been accepted into med school. And he came by and gave her that personal invitation and said, "Would you please come to my college graduation? Would you sit where my mother would have sat?" She said, "I'd be honored to." Fast forward 4 more years, and Tommy is graduating from med school. And he comes by to her house and gives her the personal invitation and said, because of the limited space at the university, I can only invite just a couple of people. And so I've invited my dad, and would you please come and once again sit where my mom would sit. She said, I'll be there. 3 more years, he finishes his internship and meets the love of his life, who works in the hospital where he'd been working. He sends her an invitation in the mail to his wedding. He says, I finally found a church home like you've been asking me to, and I met a beautiful young girl. We're going to be married in a church. Would you please come to the wedding, and would you sit where my mom would have sat? And she said, I would be no other place on that special day. Who are you investing in? There's always a child, a student, a teenager. There's an adult. Could be an older person who feels like the world or people have given up on them. But your kind word, your encouragement, the touch from the light of Christ from you to another person could make an eternal difference in their life.